Yo, what's good? It's your boy H2O, and welcome back to another edition of the New Balance Podcast. Listen, stop the press. I always say I have a special guest on, and this is about to be fire, and it is all of that. But I promise you, I have on a very special guest. New Balance Podcast. Show my niece, my daughter, Kiara Sam some love. What's going on, Key?
Nothing much. Happy to be here.
Oh man, we're so glad to have you with us today on the New Balance podcast. We've been talking about this for a little while now, and I think the timing of this is so perfect. We have an exciting topic that really fits who you are, where you are in life, and we are ecstatic about this 12, 13, 14. I don't know how many weeks. I know it's at least 13 weeks that we'll be doing this topic. For those of you who are just tuning in and picking up here, we are in episode number, I think 4. I'm not sure. It's episode 4. Living inside of what's living inside of you. I think if we were to look in the dictionary, Kiara, and we looked up that particular phrase, your picture would be beside it. I think you are a powerful, yeah, absolutely. I think you're a powerful young lady. Definitely, you've demonstrated that, not just now, but over time, right? As I always say, you my kid. So I'm like, she's just not beautiful. She got the brains to go with it, right? So
Right.
we got to have the balance, right? We got to have the balance. But
Balance.
before we jump into this podcast, Kiara, bring us up to speed. What's going on with you? I know we're getting ready to enter into these summer months. Talk to us and let the people know what's been going on with you.
I think the one word that would summarize what's going on with me is change. And
Yes.
so, transitions and just a difference in my life. And
Mhm.
so, whenever you had talked to me about the series, I was like, man, this was not only going to be a blessing to, your audience, but also to me as I, kind of went through, what does that scripture mean to me um, and what exactly um, kind of fleshing out what how to articulate about the scripture. And so it was a really big blessing to me because this is not only just a spring to summer period in life. It's like a okay, what's next thing in life. And so I think that it was just perfect timing how everything just wrapped up together, and you and us connecting, and especially
Absolutely.
about the topic today.
Yeah, I agree with you. Obviously, um, time does bring about a change. I know it's cliche and people say it, but time, it really does bring about change. So, just the thought of having this whole conversation, this whole movement, living inside of what's living inside of you, um, part of what you see me doing is something that's been on the inside of me for a long time. To be honest, I didn't know that I would have my very own, but at least I know for the last 9, almost 10 years, I have been behind the scenes helping individuals, companies do their own podcast, helping them with the vision of it, helping them with the concept of it, helping them with the marketing of it, helping them get it into the hands of the people who need it and who want it. Never in my wildest imagination would I be having my own very own podcast. But time does bring about a change. And
Mhm.
when you said that change and transition, um, I recognized the time had changed and I recognized the transition. And so this wasn't something that I was just so happy to do, but I understood the responsibility of what I needed to do. And I
Mhm.
think if you're gonna ever live inside of what's living inside of you, it's gonna force you to have to one trust, have faith,
Mhm.
but you're gonna also gonna have to do it trembling, right?
Mm.
And as we have this journey, as we talk about these things, you'll hear us making statements and saying different things, but I promise you, the majority of us who will have this conversation, we've all had to do some things and will continually have to do some things trusting while trembling, right? I want you to know that it's not abnormal, it's normal, right? And I think where I want to dive in with you, um, when I think about your college, I remember when you graduated from Tech City. I remember you going to U of H, and it seemed like you being at U of H was it was just like a snap. You were there just so, it didn't seem like 4 years, right? It just went by so fast. It was like we have this young lady. I mean, well, this teenager when you left, and now it's like, bam, she's a young lady. Oh my gosh, she has a job
I'm fine.
offer. Time
Yeah.
flies. And so I want to read this verse of scripture, and then we'll kind of dive in with your life and your change and some of your transitions. The scripture verse that's driving this whole conversation to make us look at a deeper level is 2 Corinthians 4:7, and it's the A portion of the verse. It says, "But we have this treasure in earthen vessels, but we, not certain people, not people down the street, not people on the other side of the family." It says, "But we, that's us, all of us, have this treasure in this earthen vessel." So if you're watching this, if you're listening to it, I want you to know there are some treasures on the inside of you. And the sooner that you can live inside of those treasures, those things that are inside of you, I believe the sooner you can find really true peace, true joy, true happiness. I believe your life will transition in some of the ways that you desire them to be, right? Not without confrontation, not without problems, right? But it's better to live life on this side than it is on the other side. So, with reading that scripture, Kiera, I want you to kind of break down and help the listener and the viewer understand, how did you kind of discover or come into this whole life of broadcast and media, right? Obviously, you went to U of H, go Cougs, right? And talk to us a little bit about that, kind of how that started in high school, and or maybe even before then. Maybe you knew at a younger age. Just kind of bring the people up to speed of how you tapped into that treasure.
Yeah. Well, I graduated from Texas City, but I grew up in Lamarck. And
Absolutely.
so both of them are small towns.
Hmm.
And I said Lamarck because it is a small town. Texas City is a small town. And so basically what I had around me were small towns. And that was my reality. But when I turned on TV, it was like pyramids, it was like mountains, it was snow. Never seen snow before. Um, it was animals, it was um, resorts, or it was a totally different world. And that's what was interesting to me, was the Discovery Channel, the Travel Channel, and stuff like that. And I always was like, wow, like whenever I grow up, I'm gonna see the world. I'm gonna, show other people what the world looks like, what that looks like.
Right.
And that's something that, just came from being in a small town, and not having much to really be interested in, except for, learning new stuff about, the world around me. So I think that is what really, was how I chose this kind of field. Um, I love to go out and gather information and then come back and be like, did you know, to people who I know, or even just people who I don't know, and just be able to converse with all types of people, which I think I told you I was trying to learn Spanish and
Right.
do it a little bit better. That was my minor
Absolutely.
in college, but you get to talk to people in a different way, and they get to learn about you, and you get to learn about them. And I just thought thought that was always interesting, even when I was younger, especially when I was younger. So that was a seed planted in me at a young age. And so then I got older and I started watching, I think it was like an Oprah documentary. And
Yes.
she said something about I wanted to be the first person who people saw when they turned on their television. And
Mm-hmm.
I said, that
Yeah.
I want to do that.
Right.
That sounds like, yeah, that sounds like something I want to do. And so then after that, I didn't do media in high school because I wanted to do the fun stuff. I wanted to do the choir and the cheer, and I wanted to do that. So, and I was like, you know
Absolutely.
what? I'm gonna delay this, but when I go to college, I'm gonna go full force. I'm not gonna have anything get in my way of making sure that I'm taking the right steps to move into the direction of journalism.
Mm-hmm.
And I did. So, went to college and I just kept that in mind. Even when I worked, at the school theater, that was my
Right.
first job on campus because I still needed income.
Right.
So I worked on campus, and still, even with that job, I kept in mind, well, this isn't where I want to be, but what can I do here that would prepare me for where I want to be? Because I know where I
Mm.
want to be. It's in my heart. So I
Right.
was like, well, I'm at a theater. I'm just handing out brochures or, scanning tickets. But what I can do is say, hi, how are you? Hi. Oh my goodness, it's so wet outside. Try to start a conversation because I knew that being a journalist required me to talk to people
Right.
and to be a little bit better at it. So just keeping these small things in mind when doing certain jobs, and just moving throughout life in general, keeping in mind, like, how can I use this moment, what I have in my head, what I have, what God has given me right now, how can I use that to get to where I'm going, or where I want to go. And so, yeah, I just always kept that in my mind. And then even on campus, I was very intentional about what I did and the shows that I did. I had like 3 different shows on campus. And that's because, I really knew, like, this is what I want to do. I want
Right.
them to see my face, right? But then it
Absolutely.
shifted from seeing my face to something like deeper as I continue getting closer to God. It was like, yeah, at first, like I said, I was like, I want them to see my face, but then it was well, I want them, I want to be, let me word this correctly. It was, well, I want to be seen so that God can be seen.
Yes. There we
I
go.
want so once I got a little closer, I was like, no, I don't want to be seen. I want them to see me and be like, wow, I can do that too. Or wow,
Absolutely.
what is it about her? And it's that light. And
Absolutely.
that's not of me. I didn't do that. I can't do
Absolutely.
that.
Right.
And so as I got, well, I'll talk about it later, but as I got closer, I was like, just me wanting to see me wasn't substantial enough. It
Right.
had to have been something deeper. And what
Mm.
it is that's deeper is that I want other people to see, like, hey, this is what God has done for me, and He can do it for
Absolutely.
you too. Whatever it is,
Right.
that's inside of you, what He's calling you to do, He can do that. And
Absolutely.
that's kind of why, that's my why now.
Got it. Okay. So you good student, good student. I love your answer, and I appreciate the fact of you taking the time to lay it out, um, of how it came to you. So it's a couple of things that you said that I want to capitalize on. Well, really two things that you said, but I'll throw a third one in. Um, Two words together: triggers and indicators. You talked about the place that you were, small towns, but there was something about when you turned on the television. Through, even though you were in these small towns, you allowed yourself to travel and go around the world. That's what I'm hearing you say. And what it did is there was a trigger, that something triggered in you, but then also there were some indicators, right? With the things that you were doing in life. Because you said you already knew, but obviously in high school, who wouldn't want to have the fun and, be in the choir, be a cheerleader, play sports, whatever your thing is, right? But you knew that greater than this high school, there's something on the inside of me, um, that's calling to something that's deeper, that's bigger. Um, and I call those triggers and indicators. So what I want to do is really make this plain and simple for my viewers and those that are watching. Like, do not ignore triggers, do not ignore indicators. And obviously, no matter what stage of life that you're in, I believe that there are going to be triggers and indicators in those different seasons. So never ignore the triggers and the indicators that come. So when I say indicators, I want you to think of a newer model car and the fancy dashboard. When you crank that vehicle up, it lights up, and for a brief moment, you see all of the different indicators that are in that dash. Now, those indicators only flash when there is something going on inside of the vehicle, and
Mm,
you are no different. You are God's vehicle, and when
mm.
the right time comes, the indicators on your dashboard of life are going to light up. When they light up, do not ignore them. We have to give them attention. The last thing I'll say to this is it's very, very powerful statement. It's a very, very powerful word. You said I was intentional. If you're going to do anything in life, it doesn't matter if you could open up a lemonade stand, you have to be intentional. And so when I hear the transition of the intention is okay, um, I was in high school and high school was high school, but now I'm college and you say the words like, hey, if I'm gonna be a journalist, there are some things that comes along with being a journalist. And it also sounded like maybe some of the things maybe you didn't have much experience in, or maybe you didn't have much confidence in, but you was like, hey, if I'm going to be this, I'm going to have to learn how to do this. So when you're being intentional, be prepared to be stretched, be prepared to be put in a place that you're not comfortable being. So all of these, they go along with the triggers and the indicators. And so don't be afraid to embrace those triggers and indicators. Don't be afraid to grab them and hold on to them, even though they may take you through some turbulent times. When we talk about, but we have this treasure inside this earthen vessel, all of us have been given certain measures of gifts, talents, and abilities, right? And if you are intentional, like you said, at the appointed time, you'll begin to see the treasures. Now, when you see them, it's your job to open them up and find out what they are. Now, obviously, you go to school for journalism. Now you're at U of H. You are doing a myriad of projects. I remember your mom posting them on Facebook. I saw different projects that you did. I'm like, man, Key, she getting it. Like, this is not the same. Well, we call her Kiara. Um, Kiara, you were like the different projects. Every time I would see growth. And I remember telling Matthew, because that's something that he's desiring to do in life. I said, man, Key's not she's not the same Kiara, man. She's on another level. And so can you talk about that transformation of going from maybe getting involved into theater and doing those things to actually being on the screen, leading a project, having to put it out and being responsible for those different things. I kind of, like I said, I want to paint the picture through your story to others to help them grasp, what it is that they should be doing in life.
The word that comes to mind is intentional, but it's another word that I'm looking for, and
Okay.
it's maybe it's not one word. Just
Is
keeping
it
in mind wherever
mhm,
you are. Maybe you can help me out with the word.
on
Keeping in mind
purpose?
wherever you are. That's where you are, but you're looking from where you are to where you're going.
Okay.
So it's
Okay.
not, oh,
Oh man,
this
this is good. I think I have the word for you.
it's it's
I'm
it's
gonna give you a
it's
word.
that.
I'm
What do
gonna
you
give
think it
you
is?
well. I'll say it this way. I have 6 pillars, right?
Okay.
That I live by, that our family lives by. And one of those pillars, we call it passport.
Mm,
Passport simply means authorization for travel.
mm,
Now, when you get the passport, you have a destination in mind. You're not at the destination, but in order to get to the destination, you need a passport.
mm.
And in life, all of us, we need passports for different things, for different locations. I love the Mission Impossible, the James Bond movies. In order for them to travel all the extravagant places that they go, they have what? They have a bunch of different passports. So for whatever the treasure is that's on the inside of you, you're going to have a passport. And like I said, it's going to have to be a passport to get you there. It's an authorization for travel, right? So when I'm listening to you, it's like you said, I'm not, it's intentional, but it's not there yet. Cause I said on purpose, you say, well, I'm not yet. It's a passport.
Yeah.
Cause we just had a family dinner not very long ago, and I was listening to you talk about some of the future things. It's going to take you're going to need a physical passport to do some of those things, correct?
Right.
But also, you're going to need a spiritual passport, and you're going to need what I call a mental, emotional passport in order to get there. Because if you've done any flying, there are some flights where there's turbulence on there. So I don't want to take away from what you're saying, but when you were saying that, that's what came to mind, passport. Does that word work? Because if it doesn't, you're like, that's good, Uncle B, but that's not the word
No,
I'm looking for.
look, I think it's a phrase, and it came to me
Okay.
while we were speaking.
Okay.
It's it's look to where you're going, not from where you're at.
I
I
love
think
it.
that's what it is.
I love it.
I think I heard that somewhere
I
or read
love
it.
it.
But that's kind of I found out about that phrase, I want to say last year. Um, but I've always kind of thought like that. Whenever, like I said, in high school, I was like, man, I want to do theater. I want to do all the stage work. I love this. This is fun. But I
Right.
was always thinking, I was also thinking, well, um, this will help me with the little bit of nerves I have, with stage fright. I've
Okay.
never had the whole stage fright, but you
Right.
get nervous. Everybody has
Mhm.
nerves,
Oh, for
and it
sure.
helps with that.
Right.
You move on. My first job was at Wendy's,
Okay.
and whenever I was there, I tried to be the best cashier girl, ever. Hi, how you doing? Smiling, having a good day. I mean, I could have been working for Chick-fil-A. That's how good I was in
Absolutely.
my customer service attitude. And so, but that was because I was like, well, when I get older, I'm gonna have to know how to talk to people, and
Hmm.
and I don't, and I want to make sure that I'm practicing now. It's just keeping in mind, well, what are the things that I'll need where I'm going,
Right.
that I kind of need to practice on right now.
Mm.
And you know, it's just I just always kept that in mind. So I'm not sure what the question was or if I went off on a tangent,
No, you did
but
not. You're right. You're
that's
right where you need to be.
that's exactly what it was in high school and in college, um and still to this day I'm always thinking like, well, because I'm not perfect. I'm still, moving forward and
Sure.
trying to become the best Kiera that Kiera can, be. And um what are those things that you need to work on, Kiera? And just being honest with myself and saying, okay, well, wherever I'm at, this is what I'm going to work on in whatever
Got it.
capacity, because I know where my heart desires to be.
Right. So talk to us about that. Talk about that passion that wakes you up, because she had a passion that woke her up. It got her up before everybody else. Especially if you're going to be on TV, trust me, you getting up before everybody else unless you got some kind of late night stuff going on. And even those guys, the Jimmy Kimmel's, the what's his name, Jimmy Fallon, all of the top guys. Trust me, they got a grind like you wouldn't believe to be able to do what they do. So
Yeah.
talk about that passion. How it drives you and what gets you up. Talk about the passion that gets you up.
No, I wish I could say that it was family or
Oh man, I'm so glad you said that. Go ahead. I'm so glad that you said that.
children or
Go ahead.
I wish I could, but it's not.
It's not.
And what it is for me is it's not just it's not so simple for me.
Okay.
On a good day, on a bad day, it's it's knowing that my story is still being written,
Okay.
and it's being written to glorify God.
Mm-hmm.
So, because some days I'm just like, what am I doing this for again? What
Mm-hmm.
do people really care?
Mm-hmm.
You know, oh, but I'm not doing this for people. But actually, I'm doing it so that my story can, um, help others. My testimony can be an encouragement to others. And the good, like I said, the good and the bad,
Right.
it's all working together. It's all a part of, his plan, and his plan is perfect.
Right.
And so that's what gets me going. The fact
Okay.
that, okay, and I spoke about this a couple times, and I don't know why it keeps coming up in the conversation, but I'm going to keep going with it.
Okay.
But where I am, I'm always thinking about, where I am, and like, okay, planning for what's ahead. But I think that that's the journey. And so it did take a while for me to be like, okay, Kira, but this is where you are now. How are you
Right.
going to make the best of, what it is now, instead of,
Right.
um, fantasizing, or continually dreaming, praying, trying to make this come into fruition. The next step, like, no, be right here, and do what it is that God has called you to do right now. And always, but keeping in mind what it is that you really want to do,
Mm-hmm.
because it's all a part of the plan. And like I said, if it's something, good, it'll kind of encourage you to keep going. But what about those bad days?
Right.
What about when something goes crazy, haywire, and you're like, it flips you around, and it kind of tussles with your belief, and you have to, pray against that disbelief, but also understand that something good always comes from something bad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and knowing that my story is still being written, um, keeping that at the top of my head when I make decisions, keeping him, first, in all things. It really helps you make the next step. It helps you say, like, okay, well, do I have peace about this? You know, am I doing this for me? Am I doing this so that he can be glorified, or is this my ego speaking?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I making these decisions? And you know, when I think about my why, it comes down to, man, your story is still being written. Somebody's going to need to be encouraged by this, because
Mm-hmm.
someone encouraged me whenever I was younger to not just do good things, but to do great things,
Mm-hmm.
to do my wildest dream, right? And so if I'm not reading the word, and um, staying around people who are praying for me, and vice versa, if I'm not immersed in a place where I'm being poured into on my own time and in my social life, then how am I going to pour into other people if I'm not, chasing my dreams, believing in what God has for me, believing in that thing that wakes me up? How and going for it? How am I going to encourage somebody else to do that? And so,
Okay.
um, that's always been a part of me as well. It's just really keeping in mind that someone did this, for you, and you have to pour into them as well. And that's another thing, I guess, that drives me, is to, make sure that I'm doing what has been moving according to my calling, and listening to that thing that just won't go away. I call it a
Okay.
conviction.
Okay.
And
Oh, there we go.
and then and
That's
then
it.
and then encouraging other people to do the same thing, because everybody doesn't have a cheerleader, and everybody doesn't have
Absolutely.
somebody saying go for it. Everybody doesn't,
Absolutely.
they don't know Christ. And if I have the ability to, if I have the ability to keep going in my journey and keep believing, and with an understanding that it's all to glorify God and hopefully bring others closer to him too, then I want to keep going and I want to keep doing it. And I want to
Okay.
encourage others to do that same thing.
Okay. Listen, that everything you said, that's great. What I want to do now, I want to poke at you. I want to throw a curve at you because I think that's a great way of describing what drives you. Now, in the same vein of what drives you, I want you to describe what it looks like to put on blinders to help keep you driven. So when I say blinders, when you watch the horses race, like in the big races, those horses they have blinders on, and they are chasing something that's in front of them, right? The reason they have it on is to prevent them from being distracted.
Mm.
So, what blinders in life do you have that keeps you focused on the prize that's before you and not the prize that's on the side of you? But in my dealings and in my work and what I do, one of the biggest questions or one of the biggest things, or one of the biggest hurdles, let me say that people deal with is distractions and not staying focused to the assignment at hand, the assignment now, the assignment in this season. You know, it's hard to, as a freshman, as a freshman taking world history, it's hard to focus on a senior year economics class. I promise you, you hear people talk about how hard it is, and you talk about how taxing it is and whatever. You're just a freshman. Focus on world history. When you become a senior, it'll be time for that assignment. And I said that to say this. In life, sometimes we get distracted with things that it's not the time to be focused on that. I spent a lot of time mentoring youth, young adults, um, and that's a big thing. Being distracted or putting the cart before the horse. So talk to us like what type of blinders. You may have names for them, you may have phrases for them. Help the viewer, help the listener identify some blinders that they can use to help keep them focused. Because you said a vast amount of information. I heard your answer, but what I also heard too is if you could talk about blinders. And I went into detail like that to give you a place of reference, to help people understand what those blinders look like. And not only that, what those blinders cost. It should cost you something to have blinders and to wear them. It's definitely going to cost you something. Sometimes it may cost you relationships, friendships. Sometimes it even costs you your family. Sometimes it costs you, no, not sometimes it costs you. It's going to cost you some time. Maybe say your junior year in college, all your friends are going to Cabo or whatever. And but because of what you want to do and what you want to achieve, you know, I cannot take this trip. I have to stay and do this internship. If I miss this internship, I'm going to miss something. So it takes blinders. I don't want to keep going, but you get the gist of what I'm saying.
If I don't want this in my story, then why do it? If it's
Okay,
not going to add to
there we
what
go.
my point is, why do it?
Why do it? Okay,
Like,
so
why would you? We all mess up,
sure,
but why would
absolutely
you intentionally,
right. Mess up,
mess up? If you
right,
have a choice, and we always have a choice, um, just keeping in mind where you want to be, why would you make certain decisions?
right,
And that's what I have to tell myself.
right.
Keeping in mind where you want to be, why would you make these decisions?
Listen, that's so valid. But at the same time, and I'm gonna go even a step further. I'm gonna poke you. I don't get to poke everybody like I get to poke you. So let's take it out from the standpoint of being a believer, because I may have somebody that's watching who's
Mm,
saying, well, I hear you guys talking about faith and God, and I don't know God that way. Not saying that I don't want to, but I have to make it like I'm in a position where I gotta make some decisions now. So I'll go back to I'm gonna use the example of the horse. Like the horse does not put the blinders on itself, right? The person that's responsible for taking care of the horse understands the potential of the horse, and they also understand the value. Oh my God. They understand the value because the training that's been um, put into this horse, how this horse has been bred, this horse definitely has the potential to win the Preakness, meaning all three races, right? If you're in the horse racing, you know what that means. But we all know and when I say distractions, I don't mean like I don't want to go like we're talking about sin or that type of thing where you're going to leave God. The Bible says it this way. It says it's like the small foxes that spoil the vine. So let's just say, because these are your words, I said use your industry. You said I want to be the top journalist, right? So we
tough,
know, huh?
tough.
Tough, right? So listen, so we know to be that journalist, that means, and this is what I mean by blinders, you may have to take some mediocre tasks or some mediocre responsibilities, maybe for a prolonged time to get to the place that you want to go. You know this to be true in your industry, right? It may not be the race you thought it was, because you can look at other journalists and look like they ran a 100-yard dash to get to where they are. But for you, I think we may have talked about this. For you, we understand it's a marathon, right? It's a marathon. So in order to run a marathon, it's not about how fast you get there. It's about what? The endurance. So those runners, I'm switching gears from the horses. Those runners, whether they're blinders, you never see them training. They're never on TV. They never have none of these snippets where you see all the buff guys working out, the girls just doing all these crazy. You never see marathon runners. You never see any videos on them training. Why? Because they're training year round. They're training when it's cold, when it's hot, no matter what season it is. Those are their blinders. In other words, I'm saying this, you a blinder is being so wrapped up into the treasure or the thing that's living inside of you that you don't even have time for any of the other things. That's the point that I wanted to get to. And you said it, but I wanted to say it in a different way because I do get responses and questions, and I want to have something a little more balanced because obviously we talk about our faith, and we're going to always talk about
That's a
our
good point.
faith, but I do understand there are others who are intrigued by what we say, what we believe in, and they may not understand it the way we do. So I want to put it in practical terms so they can take it and digest it. So in other words, you can be so a blinder is this being so focused in the thing that you're called to do, the treasure, the thing that you've identified. You're so wrapped up into it. Let me say it this way: the people that count money for the government, we live in the time now where there's so much counterfeit everything, counterfeit money. Oh my God, it's out there. But this is what I found that blew me away. They never trained them on counterfeit money. Never. They never show it to them. They never show them what it looks like. This is what they do. They only deal with what's real all day, whatever their shifts, 8 hour, 10 hour, 12 hour shifts. What's my point? When you deal with the real, authentic, it's no need to worry about decoys. It's no need to worry about what's not real. The blinder of you being poured into, caught up into the thing that you know that you're supposed to be doing is like a safety net. It's like a protection. It's like a thing that will cover you. You said it earlier. And when you said the thing about why would I do something on purpose that I know that would, you didn't use this word, but that would sabotage me, that would stop me, that would hold me back. That's what I hear when I say blinders. You can be so caught up into a thing. Now, the thing is this: how long are you willing to be caught up in the thing? Because we'll say, and you should have, short term goals, long term goals, all of those different things. But what happens when the short-term goal turns, a 2-year goal turns into a 6-year goal. Do you abort? Do you get off of it? Or do you stay caught up into it until your change come? I'm asking a question now because living
Yeah,
inside
no,
of what because living inside of what living inside of what's living inside of you, sometimes the timetable of what we have is not truly the timetable of what God has. Go ahead, Kiara.
that lives inside of you
Mhm.
that you decide to suppress or not go after or put it on the back burner, it will always come back in different ways.
Okay.
So if you know that God has called you to be, oh, I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm not
No,
sorry.
that's good. No,
I'm always
God called you
reverting
to be.
back to it.
No, no,
God
we
has
want to
called
go
you to
to.
be
No, God has called you to be. Go ahead.
a minister, or there's something inside of you that really wants to be, you love eyes, and you decide not to go and be a pastor or a deacon
Right.
or a minister, and you decide not to go to be, I said eyes, right? You decide not to be an optometrist. There's always going to be something that leads you back to that. You're going to be the best prayer that there is. You're going to be the main
Right.
person that that people call on for at the family reunion to say grace.
Got it.
Or you're always going to, if you're, what is inside of you is to be an optometrist. If you're always going to, it's always going to be something around eyes that's going to pull you that direction. It's
Absolutely.
right there, and
It
it's
is.
up to you to walk according to that calling, but
Right.
also respond to that, that is within you.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
When you said that, I always think in this particular situation, I think about Moses. Moses is one of the greatest biblical characters who lived. He did some great things for God, and when you think about the responsibility of who he was, who he became, it's like you could spend forever just talking about his life. But we all know that there was a moment, that lasted a little while than it should have, where Moses was unwilling to live inside of what was living inside of him. And you'll always get flashes of it. You just said that it'll peek its head. We know when you read the story of Moses, we see where Moses, he killed the Egyptian and he buried him in the sand. Why did he kill the Egyptian? Because he was treating the people who God called him to deliver out wrong. Now, my question is, people say, well, killing him was wrong. Absolutely. But also in saying that killing him was wrong, the passion to be the deliverer was being manifested. He manifested it in the wrong way. And the reason I shared that is whether you choose to live inside of what's living inside of you, or if you don't, it's not going to change what's on the inside of you. The treasure that you have, it's in there. And who put it there? You didn't. God put it there. So it was interesting that you said that it's going to continue to come, and it is. And I would also say that for some of you, I would ask you a question: how long are you going to ignore, or when are you going to embrace those treasures, those things that live inside? So as that's very interesting. Um, I always tease my millennials, and I ask them that question. You have these are some exciting times to be living in, but I can tell you from experience, my college years, it's like I went to college. The next thing I know, I was married with a 4-year old. Next thing you know, I was in my 30s. Then I added 2 more kids. Then I was in my 40s. Okay. And I don't need to tell you where we are now, but my point is that time moves at such a high rate of speed. And is really, I hope that you feel the press, or I hope that you feel the weight of it to live inside of it. I hope that when you listen to these podcasts, or if you watch them, I hope afterwards that the conversations that we're having, the words, the phrases that we're using, the stories that we're telling, I hope that they impress upon you, they impress upon your heart, that it leads you to make decisions about some things. Um, Talk a little bit about that, Kiara. Was there ever a moment, a situation where you were thinking or doing a certain thing, but due to life, I call it life, it shined a light on something that you should have been doing or should have been doing more of. And in that moment, you had to make the change to do it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'd have to think about it. But yes, it makes sense. I mean, think, give me like a couple seconds to think.
Yeah, because I want to, the reason I'm asking you these questions, you're not so far removed from the college life, the campus. Um, and you're now, an adult workforce. And by the way, I told you, I just want to, I'm bragging on you. Can I share a picture, Kiara? She's like, oh my God, what picture is Uncle Buster going to share?
Yeah, I
Can
don't
I?
know what picture you're talking
No,
about.
this is a great picture. I promise you, we're good. I want to share this. So we've been talking about her life, and I'm just so proud of you. But I want to share this. Yeah, that's my niece. There she is. She's at work
No.
getting it. You know what I mean? I remember when I first saw that, I was like, I can't begin to tell you how proud, I was, I'm like, wow, she had a dream, but she could articulate. Can you still hear me, Kiara?
I can hear you now. You went out for a second.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta get me another wire. It's one to do. I should be back now, right?
Good to go.
Yeah. So I remember seeing this, and it was like it spoke so many things to me. It's like, if you don't, can you give us your age in this picture?
22?
22.
It was 22.
So the reason I want to share it, it's like, remember I told you, if this phrase was in a dictionary in that way, I would take this picture and put it by the phrase, living inside of what's living inside of you. Now, when you were babysitting Matthew and Nicole, this was on the inside of you. Like, this is your moment. I'm speaking directly to you right now. Like, this was on the inside of you. Now, could you articulate that? No. But you could, because you were watching Oprah, you was watching Discovery Channel, you were watching the Nature Channel, whatever else you were watching, you being able to dream. So part of living inside of what's living inside of you, and the reason I want to show this, I had you tell your story for it first. I had this in mind to share later on anyway, but I wanted to go through the conversation of talking with you and all these different things. I want people to see, like, realistically, it's in you. Now, this is happening for you on this picture. You're at 22 years old. I won't tell them how young you are now. That's none of their business. Those that know, they know your age. Glory to God. I'm gonna stop sharing. But like, I'm like, this is just a proud uncle, dad, that type of thing. So when you see that, what happens? I know all kind of things probably go through your mind. And was there like, hey, man, I'm here. I'm like, I'm here. The ball is rolling. Anyway, I was doing that while you were getting your thoughts together. I thought that was a good time to.
For the question about,
Yeah, was there a time where you were moving and something was exposed to you, something spoke to you, or something that was a fork in the road type thing? You like, wait a minute, I need to change. I need to do this or start embracing this now.
yeah, I actually worked in oil and gas before I got a job in news. And
Absolutely.
so what I was doing was a great opportunity. It was really great, but I knew something was missing.
Okay.
And I said, you know what? I got this degree in journalism. I'm gonna go get an opportunity in journalism, and
Right.
I did. And I think that's important because it was a great job. if
Go ahead and
if
say
you
it. You
were,
was gonna be making them Benjamins. Come on. Come on. You was gonna be making those big
it
Benjamins.
was
Go
a
on. Yeah. We could
it
talk
was a
about it.
great financial opportunity coming out of
Absolutely.
college,
Yes, it
and
was.
there was opportunity for growth, and
Mm-hmm.
there was opportunity for travel, and it's all the things that you would think like, oh, this is what I want, coming out, but it's like, well, what, there's something else that's there too, and it's it's a little more creative than oil and gas, and in doing what I was doing. And I think that was one moment I was like, no, Kira, you can't neglect that feeling. I know what it is now, but at the time I was like, that feeling of going after what it is that you want to go after. And, those desires, although they do change, I think whenever they are presented to you and
Mm-hmm.
they are stirred up inside of you,
Yeah,
you need to go after them.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. Um, I think this has been in terms of just having you articulated, and I see the wheel spinning this whole podcast. You are putting the thought process into a real time scenario. And I think for those who are listening and watching, I think there are times in your life where life will have you pondering and thinking, I want to articulate it, or I want to say it the best way, or moving it the best way. And the reason I'm doing this podcast, the New Balance podcast, the reason I have the myriad of people on, in my opinion, I believe we are the better when we can understand how we move. There is such a huge focus on how I move, but when we talk about our faith, Jesus did not roll by himself. He had a squad. He had the disciples, and all of them were different. And as
Mm,
much as we hate on Judas, Jesus handpicked him to put him on his team. So he was necessary. He had a purpose. We don't like the purpose of Judas, but I don't have to like it.
mhm,
Jesus was all knowing. He knew what he was doing when he put him on the team. And so I'm saying to somebody on here, when living inside of what's living on inside of you, you understand, take the roadmap that he used. Like that was, man, do you know how much complication that went on? And Jesus, he was in ministry just a short time for 3 years. But look at all the different fire here, the different fires he had to put out, all the teaching and the training, the on the job training that he had to do. I think it's a great model for us when we're talking about living on the inside of what's inside of us. Jesus definitely lived on the inside of what was inside of him. Like he understood why he was there. He understood his why, and he was not deterred from it, even unto death. How many
mm,
of us can say that even unto death, I'm gonna hang on to my why? I'm just telling y'all right now. I've been like, Lord, can you give me another why? I thought I could do this why, but they hit me with these cat o' nine tails and ripping my beard out, putting the thorn. Man, come on, man. Let me just call the angels and let's get this over with. I'm just being honest with you. When you think of that level of why, you think of that level of living, and then think of this too. He was innocent for something that was guilty. That is the biggest why, period. So um I don't know. I think this journey is going to be good. I think you have just added so much to the guests that have already come before you and to the guests that are going to be coming behind you. When we put this whole series together, I'm hoping people binge watch it so they can hear all of the different living on the inside, hear all the different whys, right? Hear all the different type of blinders, that people will use and will need to get them in life. So I want to close out with a portion of this last question. We may have touched it a little bit, but maybe not. Name two things or two ways that we can help families and communities be better as it relates to the thing that's living on the inside of you, Kiera. How can you use what God is giving you, and how can you make families and communities better, um, and give them a sense of hope? How can we do that?
I say, number one, we talked about it before, but it's being intentional about your decisions. And your decision, how you make your decisions,
Right.
your decision making. Um, everyone everyone wasn't built to go to 4-year university and get a 8-year
Absolutely.
degree, and uh,
Absolutely.
so if that's a part of if that's something that you have to that's a decision you have to make, how are you going to make that decision? But be intentional about it, not just because I say intentional, because a lot of people just go to school because their parents said to do so, and then
Right.
or because all of their friends are going. But
Right.
maybe you have a very successful a family who has a successful business already, and maybe you don't need to go to school. But
Right.
on the opposite side, you have a friend who also has a family with a very successful business, and he wants to go to business school. It's not about what he's doing, or what everyone what is it that is inside of you, um, and which way is that calling you to go, and be intentional about that decision.
Got it.
So that's one of the things. But even just to simplify it, be intentional about how you're spending your time. Are you spending it with a
Right.
whole bunch of people who are cool with not, moving forward and progressing
Mm.
and,
Right.
doing things? Are you spending a lot of time watching TV on your phone? Some
Right.
people watch TV to, to better their craft. Maybe you're in advertising, you like to watch a lot of commercials. That's different. You're studying, you're being intentional, right? But if you're just, on your phone and just miscellaneously passing by time, let's be intentional about our time passing in the best ways that we can. We all have to unplug, but
Hmm.
be intentional about your decisions. And then I would say number two is, don't quit. you know we spoke on it earlier, like the whole thing is about, there's something inside of us, that conviction that I compare it with the word conviction, that we get up every day thinking about. If you
I
can't
love it.
stop thinking about it, you can't stop. When you wake up, you think about it. Go to sleep. Whenever you're talking to people, you it creeps up in the conversation. You got to keep going, or it's going to bother you.
Mm.
J. Cole said this one time. He said, even if you let them kill your dreams, it'll haunt you. And I remember him saying
That's
that.
powerful.
It
That's
is, and
very powerful.
it'll always creep up on you in some type of way. So whatever it is that's inside of you, you know, you got to keep going, and because I don't know how to say it other than this, because it's all to glorify God. But
Yes.
on the other side, if you don't believe in God, it can encourage other people. And we spoke on this as well. Whatever I do, to people who don't believe, it can just be seen as encouragement, and
Hmm.
they'll see a light, but they don't understand it. They'll see something, but they can't put it with the word. But that's really me ministering to these people, and who knows what that impact can do for their lives.
Right.
And by you just not quitting, you
Right.
know. But then also just watering it down. What does that look like
Absolutely.
for your family? What does that look like to, your kids, your cousins, your little cousins, or even big cousins, whatever the case may be, people who are all around you, who are looking at you.
Yeah.
What does that do for their spirits and their walk and their journey in this life?
Right.
But I don't think you should live for people. I definitely think you should not quit for yourself, but keep in mind that you are definitely going to be a blessing to others. If you don't quit, you keep going. And I think that will just bless a lot of communities, because how many times have we seen someone, go after something and then not execute? And that's okay.
Mm.
It's okay, because we all fall short. But
Mm.
what if you could finish? Not just finish, like, do the dang thing. What
Come
if you
on
could
now. Come
really,
on.
really, do that? And you can. Just don't quit in
Absolutely. I
whatever
love it.
you do, even if you have to take a step back and work at Wendy's. You know what I mean? Because I definitely worked at Wendy's. Be intentional, in everything that you do. Remember, where you're at is not where you're going, but you're looking from where you're at to where you're going. And
I love
just
it.
not quitting is my last one that I would say would help some communities.
Do the dang thing. I love it. I love it. Look, I mean, those are great closing words. New Balance Podcast. Show some love to my niece, my daughter, Kiara Sam. Woo! This has been good. This has been good.
Yeah.
I promise you, every guest that I have on, I always learn something. And the reason I learn something because I'm intentional. I'm the type of student, I'm like, I can learn something from everybody. I know I'm gonna be in this classroom for the rest of my life. And when you're in the people business, I promise you, you can do very well when you have the intention and the heart of a student, right? We need to learn. We're in the time now where, man, we need to be taking notes and trying to learn and understand each other now more than ever. And some of the things that we desire to do is hinging upon that, right? So,
Yeah.
Kiara, this was really good, and I know the family's they're gonna love this. Let me see if I can. I will still do it, but one more time, New Balance Podcast. Show some love to Miss Kiara Sam. This was awesome. This was
Yeah, it
awesome.
was. Oh, it was
So
it was necessary.
it was very necessary. So
Yeah.
as we always say every week, it's always strength for today, sustenance for tomorrow. It's your boy, your potential conditioner, H2O. We'll see you next week, and we say peace.